And welcome, Flip Clock fans. What you're looking at is a Copal 2 motor. This is a very common motor in our flip clocks. And what I'm going to show you applies basically to this motor only. We're talking about motors that are making noise in your flip clock and what you can do about it. I hesitated to make this video because I don't want people to mess up their clocks. You are taking a chance when you do what I'm going to show you, at least part of it. We've got to get a grasp what is involved in this motor. What you have here is the spinning part. Of course, we call it a whirligig. But right there, that point there, that's the axle. That's the only part that spins. That's the only part that goes through and goes inside this the box there on the right. So this spinning is just that axle spinning that can. There's no other gears in there. There's no other bearing in there. There's a bushing on that little axle. It's important to grasp that because what I'm going to show you involves this can more than anything. First of all, when you're talking about this here, a lot of these motors need to be oiled. And the way you're going to oil that is you're going to take your oil, and you want a clock oil, or you can use a synthetic motor oil, believe it or not. You get something to drip it in there. And you're going to drip it inside of those holes. Any one of those holes, but you got to drip it so that it goes down this hole and towards that axle, and then you'll spin it. And if you can get your motor running, you want to let it run and work it out. Now in the past, I've talked to people about putting alcohol in there. We don't do that anymore. It's not a good idea. It can take your stickers off, but I have used WD-40. Sometimes the oil just don't do it for me. I use WD-40, then follow with the oil. A lot of people think I'm nuts, but I'll tell you there's sometimes when that just has to be done. Now, if you've tried that and it doesn't work, and you've got a clock and it's sitting there and it's making noise, but when you tilt it, it stops. Tilt it another way, it stops. I'm going to address that now. And again, I'm cautious about doing this because I don't want people to mess up their clocks, but this has actually worked for me. Again, you've got to understand how this works. Think about that can. It's hovering over top of the rest of the parts of that motor. There's very little space between that can and the cage. So what's under there is a squirrel cage, what they might call a squirrel cage. And there might be a millimeter, just a small amount of space that can has to access. So if you've got your clock and you're making little turns and little adjustments, what you want to do is you want to tilt it so the sound is the worst that it sounds. Now you're going to push directly upwards from that point. So you push straight up, and what you're doing is you're trying to adjust that can. Now if you tilt it some more, you find, okay, now here's the worst. You gently push up. How much force? I can't tell you that. You've got to practice it. There are other adjustments that I would be less likely to try. You can pull it and you can gently push it to try to even it out if it's wobbling too bad. But don't get too aggressive on that. You can really mess this up, and once you've messed it up, it's permanently messed up. So this does work. Like I said, I've hesitated to talk about this because I don't want someone messing up their clock. If it's the only clock you have, you might want to reconsider doing this. I hope this helps somebody. Thanks for taking the time.